Hello and welcome everyone to update number 10, April 2021 for MLFX, A Beautiful Vue. Poetic, I know. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel to follow along with these updates. We're creating something pretty special here and we're getting very close to releasing. In fact, the plan is within the next 45 days, we're going to have something launched, functional and ready for use. Whether or not that's a paid version or a free version is yet to be completely decided, but we're aiming to have both if we possibly can. This month's update is fairly brief. There's not a lot of content really added here, but a lot of stuff was going on behind the scenes. A lot of organization and getting things just ready for what's going to be pretty chaotic when we do finally launch, and refining the plan a little bit. So we'll jump right into the lightning round here. So in April, we switched from Bitbucket to GitHub. That was done for a few reasons. One of the main reasons is GitHub is sort of where open source lives. I think that's in fact one of their sales lines is something to that effect. But part of our system, Hermes, the algorithm is actually open source, and we want to build an open source community around that, so that they can use the algorithm for many different things, as well as help to construct and build the algorithm over a longer period of time. So that's one of the reasons. Also, GitHub is just much easier to use. I think it's more user friendly, and all developers have some experience using GitHub, right? GitHub is the big dog in the yard. It's been around for a long time, and generally everyone has some experience with it. So it's a lot easier to bring people on and get them set up, right? Onboard them when they have experience already with GitHub. Another one similar to that change is just switching from Jira to Trello. And the reason here is it's more enjoyable to use. It's better for smaller teams. It's more dynamic. It's better for doing marketing, project management, and sort of development project management on the same board. So that's the main reasons there. We're too small. We switched to Jira from Trello initially, prematurely, because we thought it was better for software development, but really it has opened our eyes to the fact that it is only good when the teams are sort of large. So once we get maybe 15, 20 developers in our team, then it might make sense. But for the time being, Trello is a much better method of project management, especially for Amory and I's style of project management. It's much more enjoyable to use. As I alluded to before, Hermes is the name of the algorithm. We've switched it from Overmind for a few reasons. One, Overmind kind of has the vibes of like Skynet. It's sort of, we don't want to be putting those vibes out into the world. Now, obviously, that's not our intention. We don't want to go down that path. But anything to avoid bad publicity and mass hysteria around the name of our algorithm is definitely a good step in the right direction, I think. And Hermes is a cool name that we sort of came across. We did a bit of a brainstorm. Hermes is the Greek god of commerce, among other things. He's one of the Greek gods of a bunch of different things, of the merchants and various things, or Olympian gods, should I say. So yeah, there's a lot of different things. Let me just mute my notifications here for a second. But we chose him for a few different reasons. That was one of them. Hermes also sounds similar to hermetic, which refers to being complete and airtight, which is something we want within an algorithm. And we just thought it was a cool name. So we did that change. We changed the name of it as we switched the repos, because it was a good opportunity to do that. We also introduced 2 new front-end developers in the month of April. So we've got Fayaz and Afzal, probably butchering their names, but they're both Pakistani front-end developers, and they've joined the team. They both bring a wealth of experience and energy to the team. They're really interested in the project and want to be with us long-term, which is one of the criteria I was looking for when hiring people and bringing them on board. So really good to have them on board. They're going to help speed up development of our application significantly and allow us to actually hit our deadline. Then, because of that, I had to create some onboarding documentation. I won't go into that. We also did decide to use semantic software versioning, which you can find out more information about that at semver.org. That's really just when you see version 1.0 or 1.1, 1.11, etc. That is generally using semantic versioning, although not everyone does. But I think it's good that we just decided upon that at this stage, so everyone's on the same page, they know what's going on, and there's no one trying to figure out like, oh, what do these numbers mean? Like, you know, there's congruency, and it just makes things a lot simpler when we're bringing people on to say, look, this is what we're doing, fall in line, do it that way, and there's no confusion through different repositories of the different numberings and things like that. The Beautiful Vue, the title of the article. So what was that all about? Well, we're using Vue.js, or just Vue as it's called, for our application. So we couldn't be prouder as we see it take its first steps. We've seen the first sort of instances of the application. It is live on a development server, and we can play around with it. And you know, I'm a very visual person, so I need something to look at so that I can understand what's going on and where we can make improvements. That's how I improve things, is by looking at them, by figuring out what's wrong with them, and then by offering solutions or improvements that we can focus our attention on. So very good step to just get that up and running, and we've implemented a few things such as AG Grid, which is for storing our signals and storing our strategies and all of the data that we get from our algorithm. And we've also integrated a trading Vue, as in VUE, application, which is an open source project, into the app itself. And we're using that library so we can now display, as you see in this picture, the candlestick charts. And there's a bunch of other information that comes along with that, indicators and things that we might add in. But the idea is we keep this page very minimalistic, and this is where our users go to focus on the charts and focus on the strategies and signals, and possibly even, you know, trading on the chart at as a longer term view. Initially, we don't want to do that, right? And we're going to have to hire a bunch of lawyers. We're going to have to go over a bunch of documentation, make sure we're doing everything by the book, and cover all our bases when we do that. But that's the idea of what we're doing there. And I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about our stack and why we chose Vue and some of the other libraries or some of the other frameworks or programming languages that we're using within MLFX. So behold my stuff. Why did we choose Vue? Well, really, Vue seems to be the people's choice in terms of JavaScript frameworks. Yes, we have React, and React is more corporate. If you're going for a job in the industry, you need to know React, right? Because most corporate positions are going to be using React, and that's just a fact. It's still more popular than Vue to this day. But that being said, I do not believe that is going to continue to be the case. I think that Vue is going to take over, whether it be in the next 2 or 3 years or 5+ years. I think it's just got so much momentum behind it. The community is so vibrant. All you need to go is go to this link here, and it's called Vue Awesome. It's a GitHub repository with 60,000 stars or something ridiculous on GitHub. And you can see how fast it's growing. You can see how fast the Vue repo itself is growing, the amount of stars each month. And it is far outpacing that of React. I think React has sort of reached its pinnacle, and it's only going to decline, and Vue is only going to grow to take that spot. I do believe anyway that's what's going to happen. So we looked at that. We looked at all the information, the trends, as well as what was available today, and made the decision to use Vue. So why, on top of that, did we choose Bootstrap over something like Tailwind as a CSS framework, which seems to be generally the people's choice, right? It is kind of in line with Vue and React. You've got Bootstrap and Tailwind fighting that same battle. And one of the reasons that we didn't go with Tailwind is because it's a little bit younger, right, than Vue. It's still not quite proven itself in my mind. It's been around for sort of 3 to 4 years, since 2017, I think towards the end of 2017, and it still needs to work out some of its kinks. We need to get better documentation in place. More people need to create videos and tutorials and things like that. Whereas Bootstrap's been around forever, right? And there's so much information out there available on the web. There's so much in terms of documentation, tutorials, self-help guides, things like that, that if we do come into issues, then we can easily find solutions. Not only that, but as I said, everyone knows Bootstrap like everyone knows React. The fact is that most people know Vue, fewer people know Tailwind. So it's not quite reached that level of sort of popularity that I was looking for when making a decision as to what framework we use. And right now, the most important thing for us is speed. We need to get something to market as quickly as possible. And if it's going to require some of our developers having to learn a new framework, then that's just going to make things more difficult. And from what I've heard, from what I looked into, Tailwind does have a little bit of a steeper learning curve than some of the other frameworks like Bulma or Bootstrap and things like that. It's a much more freeing framework in terms of much more customizability, but there is that initial hurdle of the learning curve that needs to be overcome. So that's why we chose Bootstrap over Tailwind. Auth0, to be quite frank, was brought in as a way to minimize the amount of things that we needed to concern ourselves with. If we can outsource certain aspects of the business that are tedious, annoying, require a lot of work up front, maybe not a lot of work up front, but ongoing maintenance, and could introduce many growing pains, then that is something that we're looking for. And Auth0 tackled a few problems that we were having, one of them being authentication, which happens when you log into an application using something like social login, right? You're authenticating that you're able to view what is going on within that application. So you're saying, okay, I have permission, here's my username, my password, I have permission to log into that application. The next thing is authorization, and authentication uses what's called zero auth, or zero auth 2, most companies use these days, or most authentication processes like Firebase, etc. use. Then there's authorization, which is authorization is what's done with JSON Web Tokens, or JWTs. So once you've logged into the application, you need to know what you have access to within the application. What is your level of authorization? Are you an administrator? Are you a pro user? Are you a basic free user? And what access does that authorization grant you within the application? Then finally, it's also user management. So it works like a database when it comes to storing all of our users' data, whether that be their email address, their password, their username, information that goes along with their profile, such as a bio. All this different information, we don't need to store that internally within our own database anymore, which is, it's a weight off our shoulders. One of the main concerns with applications in this day and age is data security. So we want to make sure that we have our users' interests at heart, and we're not creating a sloppy database with poor user security very quickly to get a bare bones MVP to launch right to the market, because that's what you need to do as a startup. You need speed. You need to get something to market as quickly as possible, but we shouldn't be compromising security for that. So that's why we chose to use Auth0. We chose to use Auth0 to take care of those steps for us, and we just integrate it into our application. Does that mean we're going to use that long term? Probably not. Eventually, once we can afford to bring a team on on board full time to do user management, authentication, authorization, then we'll do that. But initially, it's very nice to have those things taken care of for us by a third-party service that, I might add, is free. So there's no real reason not to. Until we have 2,000 customers, then we need to start paying for it. So for the initial stage, it just makes complete sense. Same with Stripe billing. I mean, you'd have to be absolutely crazy to try and create your own billing platform from scratch. Like, the undertaking is just absolutely huge. It is one of the most vulnerable parts of your application. So to try and do it in-house, quite frankly, is stupid for anyone who's just getting started. Yes, if you're a massive company like Facebook or Twitter or something, then you do it in-house, right? You can add that to your bottom line, because you don't want Stripe taking 2% or 3% of your revenue, because you're making hundreds of millions of dollars, and 2 to 3% is a lot of money. So it makes sense to do it in-house. But for anyone who's not earning hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars, it doesn't make sense at all to do that as an undertaking. So we chose Stripe after looking at a couple of dozen different options. We thoroughly looked at all the possibilities, all the different things we could use, and in all honesty, it just seems like Stripe is in the best place for over the next decade, in terms of the 2020s, being the global leader in the payments industry. It seems to be better poised than the biggest competitor, which may even in fact be the majority leading party in the payments industry, which is obviously, thinking PayPal. It's obviously PayPal. But they have, I think that Stripe has got much better technologies. They seem to have a much better user interface. They're more customer focused, and they have great different products that they have, right? They've got, like, Stripe billing is one of them, Stripe checkout. There's Stripe Connect, which is for if you want to pay people, like affiliates and things. There's so many different things you can do within the application, and they have a nice clean dashboard that you can use as a CEO or someone who's in charge of the payments, without having to know too much technical too much of the technical side of things. So we're going to use the payment gateway and the customer portal, which allows us to easily integrate this into the system, and it shouldn't take very long at all. I spent the last couple of days looking into it, figuring out exactly what needs to be done, and it really is a matter of just step 1, step 2, step 3, copy some code here, copy some code there, edit it a little bit, and we should be good to go. The great thing is we can also connect Stripe directly to Auth0, so that we don't have to have any middleman interaction on our server, which is another security measure that we can have in place, right? We're not touching any of that at all. It's handled completely third party to third party, with no server-side interaction on our behalf. The next thing we got into was the API. So Amri's been working on this for a while, and it's a RESTful API, which I won't go into too much detail about what that means, but what it allows us to do is access the data from our algorithm, from Hermes, and manipulate it on the application or within the application. So we can now store this data on our database, as well as having it be sent straight from the algorithm to the Vue application, displayed on a grid in terms of the signals, the agents, the strategies, all of the metrics that are attached to those things. And we can manipulate it to our heart's content. So we can put it on charts. We can create new metrics using the base level metrics in terms of creating averages, creating means, medians, all the different wonderful things that we can do with it. And yeah, that'll just make it easier for our front-end developers who don't now need to go to the back end and figure all this stuff out or retrieve it even from the database. They can just work with this API and display that information and do whatever we need to do with it. The only thing we need to do is just create documentation so we can figure out how that is actually possible, because at the moment we're working a little bit blind, but the documentation will be done in the next couple of days, and we should be able to go from there. Next 2 points, I'm just going to quickly go over the beta results. There's no more beta results to let you know of. We've sort of put that on hold until we get this application up and running. And likewise with the bug fixes, we haven't really been focusing a lot of attention on that at the moment, but we haven't found any critical bugs either, which is good. So now I guess it's what we're working on in the coming month. So we're going to be focusing on obviously documenting the API, adding in popular strategies as our product. We initially were going to do something to do with pattern recognition as well, but we've decided to get rid of that for now and just focus entirely on popular strategies. And what that means is that we will go to Google, go to YouTube, look at different popular strategies that people are using to trade within the market that have gained a lot of attention. We're talking hundreds of thousands of views and people using these strategies. And then we're going to manually program them into our agents and have them take trades, have them back test for the past X number of years, right? 5, 10 years, however long we want to choose. And then we're going to display all of that information on a grid and rank them against each other to see which performed the best over that long duration, maybe over like a 6-month duration or a 12-month duration, and possibly more recently over something like a 1 to 2 month duration. So you can see which of these strategies are actually performing in the market, right? The current live market, which I think would be a very useful thing for our customers. It'll also be great for marketing, because what I can do is I can then create marketing content, such as a video on YouTube, and say, look, we used this guy's strategy that he's so confident with and says that it's an 80% winning strategy or something ridiculous. And we can say, we actually back tested this exactly how he said it worked. And this is the actual results for that duration. Yes, maybe it performed in some market conditions, but possibly it performed very poorly in other conditions. So it's great for transparency and also confidence in using strategies going forward, because you can see exactly how it performed in different market conditions. So you know when you should be using that strategy and when you shouldn't be using that strategy. The next point is just Auth0, so we're working with authentication and just getting that up and running. Almost done, almost there. Then we just need to connect that to Stripe, which is the next point there that I've already covered off. Basic analytics and on the analysis page, sort of what I was alluding to there with the popular strategies. We're just going to be doing the same with our signals as well. And we're going to be displaying them on the analysis page, likewise with the strategies, as well as some charts and things to make it all look pretty and make it more informative for our users. But that's it. That's really it. We're working on that stuff. I'm working on a little bit of design over the website, as well as writing some content, getting things up and running, and just learning how to manage these new fellas that have come on and helping them get started, helping them, hit the ground running, as well as updating them with tasks to do every couple of days, which is interesting, difficult. Got to learn a lot to do it, but enjoying it overall. That's us for this month. I really hope you enjoyed this little update. It might not be super informative for people who are, or super exciting to watch for people who are looking at the product itself, but I hope this brings value to anyone who's going through similar stages of setting up a business and learning, what needs to be done, going through all the processes. And this could be super useful for someone who wants to know, like, what actually goes into creating a startup, what actually needs to be done, what are the steps, step by step, because often you'll get someone coming in who's been working on a business for 5 years or something, and they'll be like, oh, you just need to do this, 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 and this. And it's coming from a point of someone who's already 5 years ahead of you and knows everything and has this wealth of experience. And sometimes it's kind of like not actionable advice. It's not actionable things that you can do right now. It's stuff that may be obvious to them, but only through the fire of actually trial by fire, have they learnt these things, and have they learnt that this is the way to go? So hopefully these videos do bring some kind of value, whether or not it's just for the interested parties following along with the project, or someone who's looking back on them maybe 1, 2, 3 years in the future and looking at the steps that we took to build this business. So that's us. See you on the next video. If you haven't already, please do consider liking the video and subscribe to the channel to follow along as we do build this business out. The content will become much more regular once we do start marketing and once we have a product to market. At the moment, most of my attention, because I'm the only one doing these videos, most of my attention is focused solely on just making sure that the project actually succeeds, making sure that we actually get something launched, and then it will become more focused on, okay, let's find some customers, let's build the business out. But for the time being, we need to set a strong foundation and then go from there.